makes it impossible. You can find some, you can kill some, you can assassinate, you can render, you can torture, and for everyone you do that, more come up. So Clark was looking at the president endangering the country enormously. That's how he saw it, and he was right. But he waited till after his retirement came at the end of 2003 to tell us in 2004. As I say, I'm glad he told us, and not many people have. He could have averted the war. So could Powell, so could Wilkerson, so could about 50, 100 other people. And I'm not talking about people who were for the war, who didn't want to avert the war. I'm talking about the people who thought it would be catastrophic and who had the documents. Now, as I said, what I say is, don't do what I did. Maybe I would have averted the war, maybe I wouldn't. I was one of 100 people who had those documents, so I'm not the only one. And most of those were against the bombing, more than we were against the war as a whole. We thought of the bombing of North Vietnam at least as totally murderous and counterproductive. None of us told. None of us. Now, why not? Well, a lot of reasons. As you were saying, it might have been killed. No, I don't think any of us worried about that. Maybe wrongly, you know. With the Pentagon Papers, my wife was very afraid that I'd be killed. I said, no, they don't do that to Americans. I knew about Vietnam. I knew people I knew in Vietnam who got crossways with CIA and whose cars blew up under them. But I saw one of them, Dr. Don, the day after his car blew up, like this. And he'd been on the CIA payroll for years, but he was now running against you. They didn't like that. So I said, they do it to other people, but they don't do it to Americans. I thought, well, I was wrong. They did bring up the people, as I say, with orders to incapacitate me. Totally, she was right, I was wrong. But they didn't do it. They thought they would be caught, and they aborted the operation. As one of them said, they thought they were going to be treated like Oswald. An interesting comment, that they would be patsies, as Oswald said he was. These were CIA people from the Bay of Pigs, assets. So, the first thing is then, clearance is over, career is over, job is over, and would I have gone to prison then? Well, I suppose I would. Revealing all this stuff, you know, on the president, I'm not sure that a case would have looked too good at that point. Current stuff, and maybe I wouldn't have been tried, and maybe a jury wouldn't have found me guilty. But I wasn't thinking about that. It never occurred to me to do anything like that. Nobody ever had. And I mean, there was no precedent. But above all, I had, after all, made a promise. I hadn't been sworn in yet, but that didn't matter. Actually, one of the reasons they had for saying that I deserved a GS-18 was that I already had a number of clearances higher than top secret as a consultant. So they didn't have to go through these extra background checks. And it showed how much I was an insider and so forth. And McNaughton said, at my suggestion, he needs to have every clearance I have, because it's my special assistant. And he has to be sufficiently senior to do that. So I got 12 clearances higher than top secret. And actually, okay, 12 clearances. There's many more than that that were top secret. Although we're talking about secrecy in the title here tonight, let me tell you something. The fact that there were any clearances higher than top secret was a very well-kept secret. If you didn't have those clearances, you didn't know they existed. You really didn't. You could have been in top secret clearance for 20 years in your life and not know that the guy at the next desk, which might be me or other people, your friend at the next desk, had clearances you didn't know existed. That's a good secret. The idea that all the secrets get out is false. It's a cover story. They can keep secrets very well for a long time, tons of them. And even thousands of people can know them, and they don't tell. A guy I met later, Hans Magnus Enzensberger, once wrote a paper on state secrecy, and he said, the greatest state secret is what is secret. And among other things, these clearances were secret. So in the course of my trial, somebody, who was it, maybe it was Fulbright, but arranged a senator, my mind now, actually stuff like that, arranged a meeting of the top senators, and this was before the Watergate hearings, I believe, I don't remember, yeah, no, it was during my trial. Meeting of senators like Senator Ervin, Senator Eagleton, remember him? Fulbright, McGovern, top foreign policy people. I wanted to brief them about secrecy. So I told them about these clearances. And Senator Ervin said, if you remember him, said, why, they've sworn to us for years that there are no clearances higher than secret, confidential, and top secret. Those are the only clearances. And you're telling us through other clearances? This is Senator Ervin. Not one senator there knew what I was telling them, with one exception. Senator Symington was there, and he had been Secretary of the Air Force. And he hadn't told any of his fellow senators. He didn't break that secret. Okay, so there are all these clearances of various things. Black operations, different reconnaissance satellites. The U-2 was one example. U-2 operations. I had a U-2 clearance for U-2 operations, which was quite unusual, because I studied the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, in each case, of course, I made a promise as a condition of getting the clearance and a condition of keeping my job. It was a contract. It was a promise. They always call it a secrecy oath, but strictly speaking, it's not an oath, it's a promise. And it says, I understand that I might be subject to prosecution under 18 U.S.C. 793 and so forth. If I revealed when an authorized person and stuff I'm like, and it was true, you might be subject to prosecution. I was. Not unsurprisingly to me. What was a surprise was to learn about a year into the trial that I was the first person ever prosecuted for leaking secrets to the press. The first person ever prosecuted under 18 U.S.C. 793, which is an espionage act, meant for espionage, not for giving information to the public. It had never been used. I've said this to audiences larger than this of lawyers and judges and others of journalists, and asked how many knew that. 1, 2, or none. There's no case law. They didn't study it in the books because there were no cases. Mine was the first, and they didn't know that. It was just as unprecedented as the injunction against the Times. There's a lot of feedback here. Can we deal with that?
He's doing it now. He's doing it now. It's being checked.
Yeah, okay. They're handling it. Okay, so we happen to have a First Amendment, or we had a First Amendment. We still have a First Amendment. We don't have a Fourth Amendment on search without a warrant, being forbidden. But we still have a First Amendment, and as a result, we don't have an Official Secrets Act. Nearly every country does. I assumed we did. I assumed I had broken it. So does everyone else. And it was a long time. It took a lot of search and investigation for my lawyers to conclude there were no unreported cases, there were no cases, there had been no cases. And as my lawyer said, after a year under indictment, he said, Dad, as far as we can make out, you haven't broken any law. I said, well, great. Glad to hear it. That was news to me. I was surprised. And I said, so I'm home free then. He said, well, it's not as simple as that. That if the government goes into a jury, a courtroom, and says to the jury, U.S. versus Daniel Ellsberg, 12 felony counts, that was I was facing for a possible 115 years, you can't be sure you'll walk out of there free. I said, well, what are my odds? He said, 50-50 of 115 years. I said, 50-50 and I haven't broken any law? It's 50-50. He said, well, face it, Dan, copying 7,000 pages of top secret documents and giving them to the New York Times